Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 286th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when they said to the old man, We desire thee to carry us a pleasuring in this thy boat, and take this dinar, he answered, Who may go a pleasuring on the Tigris? The Caliph Harun al-Rashid every night cometh down Tigris stream in his state barge, and with him one crying aloud, Ho, ye people all great and small, gentle and simple men and boys, whoso is found in a boat on the Tigris by night, I will strike off his head, or hang him to the mast of his craft. And ye had well nigh met him, for here cometh his curragh. But the Caliph and Ja'afar said, O Sheikh, take these 2 dinars, and run us under one of yonder arches, that we may hide there till the Caliph's barge have passed. The old man replied, Hand over your gold, and rely we on Allah the Almighty. So he took the 2 dinars, and embarked them in the boat, and he put off, and rowed about with them a while, when behold, the barge came down the river in midstream, with lighted flambeaux, and cressets flaming therein. Quoth the old man, Did not I tell you that the Caliph passed along the river every night, and ceased not muttering, O protector, remove not the veils of thy protection. Then he rowed the boat under an arch, and threw a piece of black cloth over the Caliph and his companions, who looked out from under the covering, and saw in the bows of the barge a man holding in hand a cresset of red gold, which he fed with Sumatran line aloes, and the figure was clad in a robe of red satin, with a narrow turban of Mosul shape round on his head, and over one of his shoulders hung a sleeved cloak of cramoisy silk, and on the other was a green silk bag full of the aloes wood, which with he fed the cresset by way of firewood. And they sighted in the stern another man clad like the first, and bearing a like cresset, and in the barge were 200 white slaves, standing ranged to the right and left, and in the middle a throne of red gold, whereon sat a handsome young man, like the moon, clad in a dress of black, embroidered with yellow gold. Before him there beheld a man, as he were the Wazir Ja'afar, and on his head stood a eunuch, as he were Masrur, with a drawn sword in his hand, beside a score of companions. Now when the Caliph saw this, he turned and he said, O Ja'afar! And the minister replied, At thy service, O Prince of the true believers. Then quoth the Caliph, Belike this is one of my sons, Al-Amin or Al-Mamun. Then he examined the young man who sat on the throne, and finding him perfect in beauty and loveliness and stature and symmetric grace, said to Ja'afar, Verily this young man abateth not jot nor tittle of the state of the Caliphate. See, there standeth before him one as he were thyself, O Ja'afar, yonder eunuch who standeth at his head as if he were a Masrur, and those courtiers as they were my own. By Allah, O Ja'afar, my reason is confounded, and I am filled with amazement at this matter. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 287th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the Caliph saw the spectacle, his reason was confounded, and he cried, By Allah, I am filled with amazement at this matter. And Ja'afar replied, And I also by Allah, O Commander of the Faithful. Then the barge passed on and disappeared from sight, whereupon the boatmen pushed out again into the stream, saying, Praised be Allah for safety, since none hath fallen in with us. Quoth the Caliph, O old man, doth the Caliph come down the Tigris River every night? The boatman answered, Yes, O my lord, and on such wise hath he done every night this year past. O Sheikh, rejoined Al-Rashid, we wish thee of thy favor to await us here tomorrow night, and we will give thee 5 golden dinars, for we are stranger folk, lodging in the quarter Al-Kandak, and we have a mind to divert ourselves. Said the oldster, With joy and goodwill. Then the Caliph and Ja'afar and Masrur left the boatmen and returned to the palace, when they doffed their merchants' habits, and donning their apparel of state, sat down each in his several stead. And came the emirs and the wazirs and the chamberlains and the officers, and the divan assembled and was crowded as of custom. But when day ended, with all the folk had dispersed, and wended each his way, the Caliph said to his wazir, "Rise, O Ja'afar, let us go and amuse ourselves by looking on the second Caliph." At this, Ja'afar and Mansur laughed, and the three donning merchants' habits went forth by a secret postern, and made their way through the city in great glee till they came to the Tigris, where they found the greybeards sitting and awaiting them. They embarked with him in the boat, and hardly had they sat down before up came the Mock Caliph's barge. And when they looked at it attentively, they saw therein 200 Mamelukes, other than those of the previous night, while the link-bearers cried aloud as of wont. Quoth the Caliph, "O Wazir, had I heard tell of this, I had not believed it, but I have seen it with mine own eye." Then said he to the boatman, "Take, O Sheikh, these 10 dinars, and row us along abreast of them, as they are in the light and we are in the shade, and we can see them and amuse ourselves by looking on them, but they cannot see us." So the man took the money, and pushing off, ran abreast of them in the shadow of the barge. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And now, when it was the 288th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that the Caliph Harun al-Rashid said to the old man, 'Take these 10 dinars, and row us abreast of them,' to which he replied, 'I hear and I obey.' And he fared with them, and ceased not going in the blackness of the barge till they came excuse me. They ceased not going in the blackness of the barge till they came among the gardens, and lay aside of them, and sighted a large walled enclosure. And presently the barge cast anchor before a postern door, where they saw servants standing with a she-mule saddled and bridled. Here the Mock Caliph landed and mounted the mule, rode away with his courtiers and his cup companions, preceded by the crest-bearers crying aloud, and followed by his household, which busied itself in his service. Then Harun al-Rashid, Ja'afar, and Mansur landed also, and making their way through the press of servants, walked on before them. Presently the crest-bearers espied them, and seeing 3 persons in merchant habits, and strangers to the country, took offence at them. So they pointed them out, and brought them before the other Caliph, who looked at them and asked, "How came you to this place, and who brought you by this tide?" They answered, "O my lord, we are foreign merchants and far from home, who arrived here this day, and were out and afar from our homes, and went walking tonight. And behold, we came up, and these men laid hands on us, and brought us to thy presence. And this is all our story." Quoth the Mock Caliph, "Since ye be stranger folk, no harm shall befall you. But had ye been of Baghdad, I'd have struck off your heads." Then he turned to his wazir, and said to him, "Take these men with thee, for they are guests tonight." "To hear is to obey, O my lord," answered he, and they companioned him till they came to a lofty and splendid palace set upon the firmest base. No sultan possesses such a place, rising from the dusty mould, and upon the marges of the clouds laying hold. Its door was of Indian teakwood, inlaid with gold that glowed, and through it one passed into a royal hall, in whose midst was a jutting fount girt by raised estrade. It was provided with carpets and cushions of brocade, and small pillows, and long settees and hanging curtains. It was furnished with a splendor that dazed the mind and dumbed the tongue, and upon the door written these 2 couplets: "A palace whereon be blessings and praise, which with all their beauty have robbed the days, whose marvels and miracle sights abound, and to write its honors the pen affrays." The false Caliph entered with his company, and sat down on the throne of gold, set with jewels, and covered with a prayer carpet of yellow silk, whilst the boon companions took their seats, and the sword bearer of high works stood before him. Then the tables were laid and they ate, after which the dishes were removed and they washed their hands, and the wine service was set on the flagons and the bowls in due order. The cup went around till it came to the Caliph, Harun al-Rashid, who refused the draught, and the Mock Caliph said to Ja'far, "What mattereth thy friend that he drinketh not?" He replied, "O my lord, indeed 'tis a long while he hath drunk not of this." Quoth the Sham Caliph, "I have drink other than this, a kind of apple wine that will suit thy companion." So he bade them bring the cider, which they did forthright, when the false Caliph, coming up to Harun al-Rashid, said to him, "As often as it cometh to thy turn, drink thou of this." And then they continued to drink and make merry, and pass the cup till the wine rose to their brains and mastered their wits. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 289th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that the false Caliph and his co-sitters sat at their cups, and gave not over drinking till the wine rose to their brains and mastered their wits." And Harun al-Rashid said to the minister, "O Ja'far, by Allah, we have no such vessels as these. Would to heaven I knew what manner of man this youth is." But while they were talking privily, the young man cast a glance upon them, and seeing the wazir whispered, the Caliph said, "'Tis rude to whisper." He replied, "No rudeness was meant. This my friend did say to me, Verily I have travelled in most countries, and have caroused with the greatest of kings, and I have companied with noble captains, yet never saw I a goodlier order than this entertainment, nor passed a more delightful night, save that the people of Baghdad are wont to say, wine without music often leaves you sick." When the second Caliph heard this, he smiled pleasantly, and struck with a rod he had in his hand a round gong. And behold, a door opened, and out came a eunuch bearing a chair of ivory, inlaid with gold, glittering fiery red, and followed by a damsel of passing beauty and loveliness, symmetry and grace. He set down the chair, and the damsel seated herself on it, as she with the sun shining in a sky serene. In her hand she had a lute of Hindu make, which she laid in her lap, and bent down over it as a mother bendeth over her little ones, and sang to it after a prelude in 24 modes, amazing all wits. Then she returned to the first mode, and to a lively measure chanted these couplets. Love's tongue within my heart speaks plain to thee, telling thee clearly I am fain of thee. Witness the fevers of a tortured heart, and ulcered eyelid tear flood rains for thee. God's fate overtaketh all created things. I knew not love till learnt love's pain of thee. Now, when the Mock Caliph heard these lines sung by the damsel, he cried with a great cry, and he rent his raiment to the very skirt. Whereupon they let down a curtain over him, and brought him a fresh robe, handsomer than the first. He put it on, and sat as before, till the cup came around to him, when he struck the gong a second time, and lo, a door opened, and out of it came a eunuch with a chair of gold, followed by a damsel fairer than the first, bearing a lute, such as would strike the envious mute. She sat down in the chair, and sang to her instrument these two couplets. How patient bide with love in spite of me, and tears in tempest binding sight of me. By Allah, life has no delight of me. How gladden heart, whose core is blight of me. No sooner had the youth heard this poetry than he cried out with a loud cry, and rent his garments down to the skirt, whereupon they let down the curtain over him, and brought him another suit of clothes. He put it on, sitting up as before, fell again to cheerful talk till the cup came round to him, when he smote once more upon the gong, and out came a eunuch with a chair, followed by a damsel fairer than the one who forewent her. So she sat down on the chair with a lute in her hand, and sang thereto these couplets. Seize ye this fairness, bait this pride of you, to whom my heart clings by life tide of you. Have ruth on hapless mourning lover wretch, desire full, pining passion tried of you. Sickness hath wasted him whose ecstasy prays heaven it may be satisfied of you. O fullest moons that dwell in deepest heart, how can I think of aught by side of you? Now when the young man heard these couplets, he cried out with a great cry and rent his raiment, whereupon they let the curtain fall over him and brought him other robes. Then he returned to his former case with his boon companions, and the bowl went round as before, till the cup came to him. When he struck the gong a fourth time, and the door opening, out came a page boy bearing a chair, followed by a damsel. He set the chair for her, and she sat down thereon, and taking the lute, tuned it, and sang it these couplets. When shall disunion and estrangement end? When shall my bygone joys again be keened? Yesterday we were joined in some abode, conversing heedless of such envious friend. Tricked us that traitor time, disjoined our lot, and our waste home to desert fate condemned. Wouldst thou have me grumbler, from my dearling fly? I find my vitals blame will not perpend. Cease thou to censure, leave me to repine, my mind ere finding thoughts of that pleasure land. O lords of me who break our troth and blight, deem not to lose your hold of heart and sprite. When the false Caliph heard the girl's song, he cried out with a loud, loud outcry, and rent his raiment. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 290th night, she said, when the false Caliph heard the girl's song, he cried with a loud outcry, and rent his raiment, and fell to the ground fainting. Whereupon they would have let down the curtain over him as of custom, but its cords stuck fast. And Harun al-Rashid, after considering him carefully, saw on his body the marks of beating with palm rods, and said to Ja'far, by Allah, he is a handsome youth, but a foul thief. Whence knowest thou, O Commander of the Faithful? Asked Ja'far, and the Caliph answered, sawest thou not the whip scars on his ribs? Then they let fall the curtain over him, and brought him a fresh dress, which he put on, and sat up as before with his courtiers and cup companions. Presently he saw the Caliph and Ja'far whispering together, and said to them, what is the matter, fair sirs? Quoth Ja'far, O my lord, all is well, save that this my comrade, who, as is not unknown to thee, is of the merchant company, and hath visited all the great cities and countries of the world, and hath consorted with kings and men of highest consideration, saith to me, verily, that which our lord the Caliph hath done this night is beyond measure extravagant. Never saw I any do the likes in any country, for he hath rent such and such dresses, each worth 1,000 dinars, and this is surely excessive unthriftness. Replied the second Caliph, O thou, the money is my money, and the stuff my stuff, and this is by way of largesse to my suite and servants, for each suit that is rent belongeth to one of my cup companions here present, and I assign to them with each suit of clothes the sum of 500 dinars. The Wazir Ja'far replied, well is whatso thou doest, O our lord, and recited these two couplets. Virtue in hand of thee hath built a house, and to mankind thou dost thy wealth expose. If then the virtues ever close their doors, that hand would be a key the lock to unclose. Now, when the young man heard these verses recited by the minister Ja'far, he ordered him to be gifted with 1,000 dinars and a dress of honor. Then the cup went around among them, and the wines was sweet to them. But after a while quoth the Caliph to Ja'far, ask him of the marks on his side, that we may see what he will say by way of reply. Answered Ja'far, softly, O my lord, be not hasty, and soothe thy mind, for patience is more becoming. Rejoined the Caliph, by the life of my head, and by the revered tomb of Al-Abbas, except thou ask him, I will assuredly stop thy breath. With this the young man turned towards the minister and said to him, What aileth thee and thy friend to be whispering together? Tell me what is the matter with you. It is nothing, save good, replied Ja'afar, but the Mock Caliph rejoined, I conjure thee by Allah to tell me what aileth you, and hide from me nothing of your case. Answered the Wazir, O my lord, verily this one here saw on thy side the marks of beatings with whips and palm fronds, and marveled thereat with exceeding marvel, saying, How came the Caliph to be beaten? And he would fain know the cause of this. Now, when the youth heard this, he smiled, and he said, Know ye that my story is wondrous, and my case marvelous. Were it graven with needles on the eye corners, it would serve as a warner to those who would be warned. And he sighed, and he repeated these couplets. Strange is my story, passing prodigy. By love I swear my ways wax straight on me. And ye desire to hear me, listen, and let all this assembly silent be. Heed ye my words, which are of meaning deep, nor lies my speech, 'tis truest verify. I'm slain by longing and by ardent love, my slayer's the pearl of fair virginity. She hath a jet black eye like Hindu blade, and bowed eyebrows shoot her archery. My heart assures me our Iman is here, this aged Caliph old nobility. Your second Ja'afar hight is his Wazir, a Shahib son of high degree. The third is called Musur, who wields the sword. And now if in words of mine some truth you see, I have won every wish by this event, which fills my heart with joy and gladdest gree. When they heard these words, Ja'afar swore to him an ambiguous oath that they were not of those he named, whereupon he laughed and said, No, O my lords, that I am not the commander of the faithful, and that I do not style myself thus to win my will of the sons of the city. My true name is Muhammad Ali, son of Ali the jeweler, and my father was one of the notables of Baghdad, who left me great store of gold and silver and pearls and coral and rubies and chrysolates and other jewels beyond message of land, hammer baths and brickeries, orchards and flower gardens. Now as I sat in my shop one day, surrounded by my eunuchs and dependents, behold, there came up a young lady mounted on a she-mule, and attended by 3 damsels like moons. Riding up to my shop, she alighted and seated herself by my side, and said, Art thou Mohammed the jeweler? Replied I, Even so, I am he, thy Mameluke, thy chattel. She asked, Hast thou a necklace of jewels fit for me? And I answered, O my lady, I will show ye what I have, and lay all out before thee, and if any please thee, it will be of thy slave's good luck. If they please thee not, of his ill fortune. Now I had by me 100 necklaces, and showed them all to her, but none of them pleased her. And she said, And what better than those I have seen? I had a small necklace, which my father had bought at 100,000 dinars, and whose like was not to be found with any of the great kings. So I said to her, O my lady, I have yet one necklace of fine stones fit for bezels, the like of which none possesseth, great or small. Said she, Show it to me. So I showed it to her, and she said, This is what I wanted, and what I have wished for all my life. Adding, What is its price? Quoth I, It cost my father 100,000 dinars. And she said, I will give thee 5,000 dinars to thy profit. I answered, O my lady, the necklace and its owners are at thy service, and I cannot gainsay thee. But she rejoined, Needs must thou have the profit, and I am still most grateful to thee. Then she rose without stay or delay, and mounting the mule in haste, said to me, O my lord, in Allah's name, favor us with thy company to receive the money, for this thy day with us is white as milk. So I shut the shop, and accompanied her in all security, till we came to a house on which were manifest the signs of wealth and rank, for its door was wrought with gold and silver and ultramarine, and thereon were written these two couplets. Ola, thou mansion, woe ne'er entered thee, nor be thine owner e'er misused to fate. Excellent mansion to all guests art thou, when other mansions to the guests are strait. The young lady dismounted and entered the house, bidding me sit down on the bench at the gate till the money changers should arrive. So I sat a while behold a damsel came out to me and said, O my lord, enter the vestibule, for it is a dishonor that thou shouldest sit at the gate. Thereupon I arose, and I entered the vestibule and sat down on the settle there, and as I sat, lo, another damsel came out and said to me, O my lord, my mistress biddeth thee enter and sit down at the door of the saloon to receive thy money. I entered, and I sat down, nor had I sat a moment when, behold, a curtain of silk which concealed a throne of gold was drawn aside, and I saw seated thereon the lady who had made the purchase, and round her neck she wore the necklace which looked pale and wan by the side of her face, as it were the rounded moon. At her sight my wit was troubled, and my mind confounded by reason of her exceeding beauty and loveliness. But when she saw me, she rose from her throne, and coming close up to me said, O light of mine eyes, is every handsome one like thee pitiless to his mistress? I answered, O my lady, beauty, all of it, is in thee, and is but one of thy hidden charms. And she rejoined, O jeweler, know that I love thee, and can hardly credit that I have brought thee hither. Then she bent towards me, and I kissed her, and she kissed me. And as she caressed me, drew me towards her, and to her breast she pressed me and Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my tale for the day, till it be morrow.